That sounds fun. That sounds fun.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Fun. I'm your host, Annie F. Downs. I'm so happy to be here with you today. But as you can see on our feed, we've got our That Sounds Fun episode today and on Thursday. But all week, we're also sharing with you the AFD and NYC essay episodes that released in October and November. We've put them all together back to back. We started on Saturday. They will go until Friday. And a brand new one about my Sabbath rest in the city is coming on Saturday. So make sure you're taking a little time to listen to those this week too, to catch up on my life so that then I can tell you some new things on Saturday. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to tell you about one of our incredible sponsors, AG1. It's important to me that any supplements I take are of the highest quality and anything you take is of the highest quality. And that's why for so many years, I've been drinking AG1. Quality really is their commitment, and it's backed by their expert-led scientific research, high-quality ingredients, industry-leading manufacturing, and lots of testing. At each step of the process, they really go above and beyond industry standards. I know I can trust what's in every scoop because they obsess over their practices and their ingredients are heavily researched. AG1 takes care of my health by covering my nutritional bases and setting me up for success in just 60 seconds, making it so there aren't a million different pills and capsules to keep track of. Just one scoop of AG1 mixed in really cold water every day. I also love that it includes vitamin C and zinc to support my immune system. So if you want to replace your multivitamin and more, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first subscription at drinkag1.com/soundsfun. That's drinkag1.com/soundsfun. Y'all check it out. Today on the show, I get to talk with one of my business heroes, David Novak. David's an incredible business leader, and I could have talked to him for literal hours. He's the founder of David Novak Leadership, the parent organization to 4 nonprofits dedicated to developing leaders at every stage of life. He's also the host of the business podcast, How Leaders Lead. It is so good. No matter where you're leading right now, get ready to take some notes in this episode. You know, I like to warn you when it is a note-taking episode. Here's a fun fact about David Novak. He created the Cool Ranch Dorito, you guys. Literally, he's the co-founder, the retired chairman and CEO of Yum Brands Incorporated, which is one of the world's largest restaurant companies. And he has years of wisdom and insight that we get to learn from today. He's a New York Times bestselling author, and his latest book, How Leaders Learn, releases tomorrow. You are going to love getting to know him, and we have so much to learn from him. So here's my conversation with my friend, David Novak.
That sounds fun.
David Novak, it feels like such an honor to have you on That Sounds Fun. Thank you for joining me today.
Are you kidding me, Annie? I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, you're very kind. I mean, I just can't. I need to start with the whole truth of how much I love Taco Bell. I mean, I am your core audience for the guys, the man who used to be the CEO of Taco Bell. I just need you to know that I am like with you all the way. You created the quesadilla.
Oh, absolutely. Live Moss, Annie. Live Moss.
For our friends who, I mean, we are going to go so deep dive specific into some leadership stuff, which I think will be really fun. This episode is coming out on June 3rd. As you know, your book comes out June 4th, so it'll be available tomorrow for everybody. But will you kind of just tell us how you got into the role of CEO of Yum and just kind of give everybody an overarching picture, and then we'll dive into the leadership stuff?
Oh my gosh, Annie, I'll try to make it short, but I have a very untraditional background. I was actually a journalism student at the University of Missouri. I started out as an advertising copywriter, really loved doing that, but I wanted to stay in the advertising agency business, decided I wanted to go on the account side. So I then went to Pittsburgh and worked on Heinz 57 sauce. And then I had this big decision where I was going to try to decide, I thought I had to go to New York to make it in the advertising business. And I went up there and I felt kind of like a duck out of water. It just didn't feel right for me. I was a Midwesterner and just didn't think I would get all the opportunities that I would want to have in my career there. And out of the blue, I get this call to go be the account executive on Tostitos brand tortilla chips. Okay. And this was when it was being launched. And this agency down in Dallas had the Frito-Lay account. And so I ended up running the Frito-Lay account, which included Doritos and Lay's and Sun Chips and all these great things you just love to eat. And,
do we tell them now that you are the creator of the Cool Ranch Dorito?
That is true. That is true. One of my highlights. I have some lowlights, but that's one of my highlights. But anyway, maybe because of that and some other things, I kind of always took a very business approach to advertising. And the president of Frito-Lay recommended me to Steve Reineman, who was the president of Pizza Hut, who later became the CEO of PepsiCo, to run marketing. So I went from the advertising agency business and I got into PepsiCo, which was a huge break. It's a great company.
Yeah.
And so I go run marketing at Pizza Hut, and we knocked it out of the park. We had great results, and then I was asked to go be the head of marketing and sales at Pepsi. And then I realized I needed to get some operating experience so I could have the chance to run a company someday. And I became the chief operating officer of Pepsi. And then I became the president of KFC, then the president of Pizza Hut. And then I had the opportunity to run Yum Brands. So it's a very, I didn't have the MBA. I was the first person ever hired from the advertising agency business into a C-suite position.
Wow.
at PepsiCo. And, it was fun, but, I don't know how to explain how it happened, Annie. I just, somehow it did.
It's an incredible story. I mean, this new book that comes out tomorrow, How Leaders Learn, isn't your first book. When I said to your coworker, my friend Tim, when this morning I said, I'm going to go back and read all the other books now too, because there's just so much I want to learn from you. But particularly with what experience you've had, I mean, I think the back flap of the book says that at one point there were over 1.5 million team members working in 135 countries. I've got 5 employees and I've cried twice today, hand to heaven. And so why is it important that leaders keep learning? Like, why was that the next right book for you?
Yeah, well, I started to reflect on my career and Annie, just like you, I really want to make a difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And, my mission is to try to make the world a better place by developing better leaders. And I have this podcast called How Leaders Lead, and I post one every Thursday, but I've interviewed everybody from Tom Brady in the world of sports to Jamie Dimon as a CEO, Indra Nooyi, Condoleezza Rice, just really great leaders. So I have all this exposure to great leaders and how they think. And the reason why I do the podcast is so I can give other people the opportunity to learn from them too. Yeah. But as I've done these podcasts, I realize, what I love the most about it is I get to keep learning. If I got a podcast with somebody, like I just did one with Steve Squeri at the CEO of American Express, I got to get ready. I got to learn, and I gotta find out everything they've done. And when I look back on my career, my learning mentality is how I ended up not needing an MBA. How I was able to pick up skills that I otherwise would not have had. And then when I think about the great leaders, the most successful people I know, they have a tremendous desire to learn, get better at their trade, figure out advantages that they can bring to their company by learning what other people are doing. And that was basically the reason why I decided to write the book, is that, learning is such a key component of all the great leaders that I talk to. It's the habit that they've mastered. And what I want to do is help people think through how they can use learning to really grow themselves and grow their career. And I think if you do that, you're going to just have a lot more success, and you're going to be able to fulfill your potential. And that's that excites me.
Yeah. I heard a pastor say, this is probably only 2 weeks ago, David, I heard a pastor randomly, it was you know how they throw in little side sentences that they don't think anybody's going to care about. But it was something like, God will always be the only one that is all-knowing. We will learn forever. And I had this one of like, we get to learn forever? Oh my gosh, I can't wait. We get to learn forever. I was like, that is the best, that we will never stop having the opportunity to grow in what we know.
Yeah, and just think if you had the mindset that you did know it all, just think what you'd be missing out on. And just think how you'd also be zapping the people that happen to work for you. You know, I think when you have that learning mindset, it becomes contagious. And, to me, Annie, one of the things that, people always ask me is like, what do all these great leaders have? And I think it's that they have this uncanny combination of confidence and humility. The confidence comes from knowing your trade. The confidence comes from, allows you to inspire other people. Nobody's going to follow you if you don't have that confidence. But it's the humility that is really the thing that motivates people and inspires everybody, because it says, I don't know everything. I need you. I can't do it. I can't do it alone. What you do counts, and that to me is really key. So being confident and being humble, and that humble characteristic that you have, I think really does make you an active learner.
Your definition, I've just been flipping through the book because I wanted to read your exact definition of humility is just the recognition that you can't do it by yourself, and confidence. I mean, if I was a tattoo person who got sentences, I would do this. Confidence is simply the expectation that you'll find a way to win somehow. I was like, man, because so often I think confidence gets a bad rap, and maybe it does more. I wouldn't really know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I think confidence gets a worse rap for women than it does for men in business. Yeah. Because confidence for women in business, people assume you're a know-it-all, or that a lot of other words they use to describe strong women in business. But the definition being, it's just the expectation you'll find a way to win somehow. I'm like, oh yeah, I bet on me. Yeah. I can bet on me.
Yeah. And, I really believe, I have my daughter, she's just an incredible leader, and she's a great community leader, and she runs our family foundation and everything. And she has confidence, but she's not cocky. She's not arrogant.
That's right.
I think, and I think that as long as, as a male, if you come off as cocky, and arrogant, you turn everybody off. There's a big difference between cockiness and confidence. And, my daughter, I think she can go into any room and command attention through her confidence because she's humble. And she's got that desire. She shows people that what they have to say matters. And I actually think that women have a huge advantage as it relates to what I think the most successful leaders are really good at, and that's empathy. Women are much better, I think, at being empathetic and also collaborative. Because the male ego gets in the way too much. We tend to think that we've got to show people how smart we are and that we're not as vulnerable. But everybody's writing books now about the importance of being vulnerable and open and empathetic and collaborative. Those are the key characteristics, and I think women are actually better at that.
Do you think it is more important? You write in the book about studying wins and losses. And there's a whole chapter on you got to study when the crisis comes, study wins, and study failures. Which is most important, to study your own wins and losses in crisis, or to pay attention and watch other leaders' wins and losses in crises?
Well, I think that self-awareness and the ability to reflect is really absolutely critical. And so I think you always got to start with yourself. Okay. But what I always try to do, Annie, is that when I'm in a particular situation, I try to sort of be a know-how junkie. I kind of like go, okay, where can I learn somewhere else about what somebody might be doing in a particular situation like that. So like when we had crises at Taco Bell, we looked at, I recalled, what Johnson & Johnson did. Okay. I recalled Craig Weatherup, who was the CEO of Pepsi, when someone put syringes in the Pepsi cans. And that was a big national story. But I kind of looked at those companies and those people for inspiration during that time. And, I think that really helps you, step up and get done what needs to get done. Finding a way to win somehow, even in your darkest moments.
Yes. We're in a real pivoting point in some places in our company. And so I'm coming at this with you mentioned this in the book, that everybody shows up with a pair of glasses on and how they're experiencing the world and how they're experiencing your leadership. And so I have some really direct questions for you to help me with leadership. And we're just going to let everybody listen along. But for me, one of the things, did you pick up the phone and call those people? Because I have a woman leader in my mind that has been through something similar to what I'm about to go through professionally. And I've wanted just to ask a friend for her phone number and see if I can fly to her and pay her to sit with me for an hour. Is that a move I should do?
Yeah, I really think that you should. You have through your platform, you have a great access to lots of people who know lots of people. And, I would highly encourage you to find that person that knows the person that you want to talk to and have them make that introduction. And then, so that you can call them and set up a time where you can fly out there and have that conversation. When I first became the CEO of Yum Brands, I didn't have any investor experience. And so I knew we had Pepsi-Cola was our number one bottler in terms of providing, product to our customers. But Coca-Cola really wanted to get our business.
Yeah,
and so I called Doug Ivester at the time, who was the CEO of Coca-Cola, and said, I know Warren Buffett is on your board. I would love to have the opportunity to go meet with him and talk to him about working with investors. And so he set it up. I had a little extra going for me when I made that phone call, but I didn't have any hesitation in making it. And you know what was so great about it, Annie? When I went to Warren Buffett, I learned so much about how to really talk to the investment community. And I went in 1988 and I retired in 2016. I went to see him every fall.
Really?
And we developed a great relationship, and it was just amazing. And he gave me really great insight. He said, you can tell, like you, I'm really passionate about what I do, right? And so I love Taco Bell, Pizza Hut, and KFC. And he goes, David, he said, do you ever talk about what could go wrong in any of those businesses with your investors? And I go, oh, no, not really. I mean, these are my babies and I love them. And he says, well, why don't you talk about maybe the 2 or 3 things that could potentially go wrong? And when you do that, the investors will really appreciate that, and they will give you more credibility. So he kind of taught me the concept of being a sober salesman. Really kind of saying, absolutely, be excited about what your business is, but be sober enough to really identify maybe a couple things that could go wrong. And I started doing that. And I'll tell you what, most times investors would argue with me and say, oh, that's not going to happen. But every time it gave me more credibility. But I would never have gotten that insight as quick in my career without going to see Warren Buffett. And I think you need to go meet that woman and get some great advice.
Yeah, I've watched her go through a pivot like we're going to go through, and no one knew she did it. Right? So publicly, no one would ever know. People just thought she went from glory to glory kind of thing, right? But because I know she had to go through a pivot, I want to also go through the pivot and publicly just go from glory to glory. And so she's the one who's done it. When you're leading teams, the size you were leading from at every stop of it, there's also a personal emotion when things go right and when things go wrong. How did you learn when to express your personal emotion, your personal frustration or anger or sadness, or even it's easier to do the joy of like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy about this. But when things are hard at work, how did you learn when to express your feelings?
I think you learn by observing. And you learn by seeing the people that you've worked with or for and how they do it. And
Right.
and then you say, what kind of person do I want to be when that situation happens?
Right.
And for me, I had seen people kind of lose their cool,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and that's not the kind of person I really wanted to follow. So, when you're disappointed, I think the biggest thing you can do is just have people believe in you so much and have such a good relationship with you and know that you believe in them so much that you're behind them, that the last thing they want to do is ever disappoint you. So I would always try to trust in positive intentions, but still raise the bar. I tried to avoid anger. I think there's this concept, I don't know if you ever heard about it, Annie, but it's the mood elevator.
No.
You make your worst decisions when you're at the bottom of the mood elevator, and that's when you're angry and resentful. You make your best decisions when you're at the top of the mood elevator, and that's when you have gratitude.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
So I would always try to get my mindset to the point where I was at least above the line, which is curious and interested, but try to work my way up into gratitude. That's why, for me, I've always tried to have time for personal reflection in the morning, time to do my devotional, time to do my gratitudes that I write down, so that I get my mood elevator moving up. And then when you have those kind of situations, you've got your mind in the right place to where you can deal with them in a way that everybody will feel positive about moving forward.
You're coaching me so beautifully in this of like how I start my morning is actually going to determine how 2 o'clock goes.
Absolutely. And I don't want to give you the impression I didn't get mad. Okay. At times you just can't help it. It's like sometimes you go, how could that happen?
Yeah.
But one of the things I always believed the best leaders do is they take accountability for all the bad things that happen, and they don't take any credit for all the great things.
Yes.
That's the other thing I tried to do, and I clearly wasn't perfect at it, but I really tried to ask myself, what could I have done to make sure that didn't happen? I tried to first of all look at myself.
That's a great question. I mean, that's a great question for our friends listening who are parenting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this whole trip went sideways, partly because our teenagers are acting like this, but what could I have done? Like, what's some of the responsibility? I think that is really helpful.
That sounds fun.
Okay, now back to our conversation with David.
That sounds fun.
It's challenging. I'm sure you faced this. I know you did. I read it in the book, but when the industry changes around you and you have to lead your way and lead your team through a changing industry.
Right.
When that is happening, where do you go to learn? When an industry is moving into a space that is new, like I'm thinking about the Clear Pepsi story, where you're like, okay, this industry is moving. Clear is cool right now.
Right.
Everything Clear is cool. And so we're going to make this thing. And then it didn't exactly work. How do you lead into a changing industry where you don't know where the industry's going?
Yeah. Well, I think you have to get started. A lot of times it's a lot easier to be disruptive than to be disrupted. Okay.
Wow.
It's like, it's so many times people stay within their own business and their own lane, and they try to, keep it that way, regardless of what's happening, out in the world. So you have to attack yourself. You have to say, okay, if I don't do this, what if somebody else does? And if you see people doing it around you and it's changing the game, you have to see the world the way it really is, not the way you want it to be.
Yes.
When I was at Pepsi, we were seeing carbonated soft drinks sales just go down, down, down. And things like Clearly Canadian were growing, waters were growing, tea was growing, Snapple, all these alternative beverages. So we said that we had to move from a carbonated soft drink company to a total beverage company. So we did deals with Ocean Spray and Lipton, and we later on we bought Gatorade. We created Aquafina, the water that's the largest water in the business. All of that was in our quest to attack ourselves, and these were all lower margin items than what we would make on soft drinks. That's why it's so hard to not get disrupted, because you just want to
Keep
protect
doing
what you have.
Yes.
But I think that's where you can learn. You can learn from the stories like BlackBerry and Apple iPhones. You can learn from the Kodaks that never really moved forward. You can learn from people who tried to protect what they had and didn't go forward. Motorola, they were the leader in cell phones. They just did not change, but they had it all.
So will you tell me about the day y'all sat in a meeting and really decided, okay, we're going to go buy Lipton? Like, what was that meeting like where things have been walking towards, we're going to expand, we're going to have to because of what's happening with soft drinks? What was that day like where you went like, okay, execute, here we go?
Yeah. I think that you have to take time to really think through your strategy. The first thing you have to do is define reality. So you really had to look at what's going on in the world and you have to define reality. And the reality was the carbonated soft drinks were all declining, and these alternative beverages were all growing. And if you were going to become a growth company, you got to figure out, can you really grow the carbonated soft drinks? And we tried like heck to do it, okay?
Yeah.
But it was really, really hard. And the only thing that was really growing were the diet drinks like Diet Mountain Dew, Diet Pepsi. But even Diet Pepsi was slowing down.
Wow.
And Mountain Dew was doing really well because it was the only product that was so different. And people were buying that for like the extra hit of the caffeine and all that, But it was a category that was in free fall.
Were you stressed?
Well, absolutely, because when you're not winning, you get stressed. It's a lot more fun to win than to lose.
Yes.
And you want when you're in Pepsi, you want to make plan, and we're struggling to make plan because everybody else is eating into our business. But we just said, hey guys. And ladies and guys, we're going to have to sell more things and figure out how to put more things on our trucks and get it done. And it was a major shift.
Yeah. And in that shift, how do you get everybody to buy in?
Yeah.
As far as employees?
Well, it's very hard. You have to share what you know. And then by defining reality, you share what you know. And then I think a very powerful question is, what would you do? And you'll have I think when you ask that question, when everybody has the same facts, you'll find that more often than not, people will agree with what your opinion is.
Interesting.
But there's one real law in leadership that I believe in which is no involvement, no commitment. And so you've got to get when you think about this pivot that you're trying to make with your team and the people that you work with, it's very important to get them involved and to show this is the reality that you see today, and then ask everybody, do you see it the same way? Okay?
Oh, interesting.
And everybody has a chance to really chime in on that. Okay, and then from that point. Then you ask that question, okay, now that we all agree on what the reality is, what would you do?
What would you do?
That takes a lot of confidence because, Annie, somebody on your team may want to do something that you don't really want to do.
Right.
But the good news is you can hear that perspective, and you can always come back as the leader and make the decision of where you're going to go.
Sure.
But you've certainly given that person a chance to express their opinion, and that opinion leads to commitment.
Wow. Yes.
Even if they don't agree with your direction, because at least they had a chance to communicate what they saw.
And hopefully, if I'm leading that well, when we come back together and the decision is made, they say, well, I understand why she did that because we talked it all through.
Yeah, absolutely. And I call it team together, team apart. Get your team together. This is what you see. Define reality. Get everybody's opinions out. Sometimes everybody will agree with exactly what needs to be done. Sometimes you might have to make the tough decision. But when the team's together, you get people aligned. And then once that decision is made, you're a team apart. Everybody goes out that room and they don't say, oh, I can't believe Andy wants to do that. Or, can you believe? No, you go execute that to the best of your ability until you find out that maybe there's a different direction that you might want to take. And that's what I call the team together, team apart, and that's
amazing.
You really want to try to get to that.
I need you to know that I just keep thinking, I need to listen to this again and take notes. I'm going to come back and listen to you again and actually be able to take notes because I'm trying to stay with you and also learn. So I'm doing everything at once. You're my new favorite teacher.
But Annie, you got to think about this too. You learn from the wins.
Yes.
And look at the success of your business.
Well,
look what's happened.
Yeah.
I mean, you look how you've grown your business. See, that gives you so much to it's like it's a highlight reel that you can go back to, that you're going to figure. It gives you the confidence you're going to be able to find that way to win.
Yeah, that's right. Somehow. I will find a way to win somehow. And you're right. I mean, you say this in the book that every time you succeed, you're actually collecting new evidence to remind yourself you can succeed. Like, you can do this every single time. You can collect this new evidence. So you're almost building a case for yourself that you can do the thing again.
Absolutely. I think every person needs to create their own kind of highlight reel.
Wow.
You want to have your own memory bank. You want to write those things down. I've as I mentioned, I do gratitudes, and someone else told me the other day they try to write down 3 things that really went well that day. Okay.
Oh, wow.
And just to build that little highlight reel, because there are always things that do go wrong, and that's what we have a tendency to focus on. Not only with ourselves, but sometimes with people. Yeah. And that's why I think, it's so important that you take the time to appreciate first what you've been able to accomplish, and then say, okay, how can I even be more effective?
Yeah. I'm not married yet. I don't have kids. And we have a good amount of people that listen to the show that are not married yet. And everything you're saying also goes great with dating. Like, you've got to build yourself a success reel. You need a highlight reel of how good you can be at dating so that you get back out there and do it again. It works in all the ways. One of the things you mentioned in the book that I thought was really interesting, in a book about learning, you do a real important section on there's a reason it's important to love what you do.
Oh, yeah.
And especially when it comes to learning. Will you talk about that? Because so many of our friends listening are doing 1,000 different jobs. Our stats tell us that 90% of our listeners work outside of the home. Yeah. And so they are out there doing things. Why does it matter that we love what we do?
Well, I tell you what, I've never met too many people that are really good at something unless they love what they do. Usually people... if you love what you do, you're really pretty good at it. Because we don't like to do things we're not good at.
Yeah, that's right.
The other thing is that when you love something, you can't get enough of it. I mean, you just want more and more of it. Okay, and when that's the case, you want to get better and better at it, and that really makes you a learner. You never really stop. But if you're stuck and you're working in an environment where you're not doing what you really love, I'll tell you what, I don't know, you better get out of there because life's too short,
Right.
And I always encourage people to write down all the joy blockers they have in their life. What are the things that take away their joy? Yes. And then write down all the joy builders. What are the things that really give you joy? And then think about how your life is. How much of your life is being spent over there in that joy blocker lane versus the joy builders? And, try to take your life and shape it so that you can get into the joy builder lane. Like for me, when I retired, I was not going to retire, Annie. I was going to refire. Okay.
Yeah.
And so to me, I looked at what really gave me joy, and what gives me joy is, my family, leadership development, which is why I do my podcast and write books and all that kind of good stuff. And then I love golf. Okay.
Yeah.
So those three things I try to organize my whole life around those three things.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty happy. But, I think if I was, thought for some reason that I needed to go into all these private equity businesses and do, I think I don't want that stress now. I mean, what I want to do is help other people grow. And I think when you, like when you're other directed, you have a tendency to be a lot happier than when you're just focused on just the inner side of life.
Yes. So in the book you talk, it's a whole lot easier to find our joy blockers than our joy builders. Yeah. And so when we're making that list, like if somebody sits down and does that at some point this week, or use that as a summer homework assignment, like, okay, I'm going to list everything that blocks joy and everything that builds joy. How long are those lists? Do we need to find 20 things in each, or do we just let it go and see how long they end up?
I think I don't know what the answer is to that. Only you know that, okay? But it takes the time to really, you have to find that time to have the reflection. That reflection is really, really important. And you might have, 10 things or 15 things or 4 things that really block your joy. But when you're aware of it, that'll help you, figure out, okay, I got these things happening right now that just are zapping me. Okay, what am I going to do? How can I alter that? How can I shape that? Or even if I'm in a company and I'm working with a group of people who maybe do not motivate me or whatever,
right?
That company may have some other opportunities where I can move and I can take advantage of that. Because that's where I think I could. When I look at what gives me joy, that's where I might be able to go. But it's a self-diagnosis. We have to do that, and I think that's essential to growth.
That sounds fun.
And now back to finish up our conversation with David.
That sounds fun.
Speaking of employees inside a company, I had one of our teammates come to me this week and say, hey, I'd love for us to build a place where we can celebrate each other on our Slack channel. Like, I'd love for us to have a channel where we just celebrate each other. And she said, I'm afraid I'm going to forget before staff meeting on Monday the good thing this other teammate did. So can we have a place for that? For starters, I was blown away. I was like, yes, we will celebrate. I mean, we keep confetti here all the time. We love celebrating. So yes, I'd love that. But will you talk for just a minute to the people that are listening that are leaders, but they aren't the top of the company? How do you affect culture? How do you become a leader who learns if you aren't the one who is at the very top?
Yeah, I think we all work our way into that.
That's
okay?
Right.
It doesn't happen overnight. It's like it takes time and grade to really get there. I always said to people, you need to own your piece of yum, whatever that is. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what our behaviors are that we're trying to drive in our company. You need to really make that happen in your piece of yum. And if you do, and everybody else does, the company's going to do fantastically well. But you need to take ownership of what happens in your piece of yum. And I think if you might not be the CEO, but you've got job accountabilities, and you got to build your track record in terms of getting results. But your job is to build a fired up, motivated team that comes to work every day, excited to attack the business, and they can't wait to work with you to make that happen. And if you're a really good leader, people want to help you achieve everything that you can. And that's ownership. What you can't do is wait around and wait for somebody to tell you what to do. Okay? And you can't be a victim and say, hey, my boss is not doing it right. You can't be a victim. You got to control what you can control. And then, by the way, try to help your boss understand, that they need to maybe alter some of their behavior. And that's not easy to do. But you know what? I think the people that really move up the ladder in any kind of business, they have a tendency to make their boss better. I don't even.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't like the word boss. I like the word coach. But if a guy or woman is acting like a boss, if you can help them become a coach by giving them some good input, because a lot of times your coaches need input too.
That's exactly right.
They need something that gives them. They need feedback that gives them the fodder that will help them become a better leader. And a lot of times they don't ask because they're insecure. They're insecure and they want to act like they know things and they don't have that learning mentality.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I find myself, we're moving so fast that I haven't asked how everyone's doing for a week.
Yeah.
And so I have one staff member who is so good at reminding me like, hey, let's check in on everybody. I'm like, thank you. Yes, please say that to me. Yeah. Help me be the kind of leader I want to be because my brain doesn't naturally think of it all the time.
But, obviously you have a great desire to celebrate people. You got the confetti in the office,
Yeah.
And I was a big believer in recognition. I think that was probably the key behavior that drove the success that I had, whatever success I had, was I celebrated the achievements of others and had fun doing it.
Yes.
And that's, I always tell people, please don't wait for the annual meeting. Please don't wait for the monthly, team meeting. When you see recognition, be spontaneous. Let people know that you appreciate what they did. And like you and me, we have a lot in common. I'd get on that same treadmill too, and I'd have to, but I tried to get myself into that mindset of looking for people doing good things.
Yeah, will you tell the floppy chicken story? That is so great. Do you have time to tell us that one?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you the origin of it, okay? Because I think this is important. When I was running operations for Pepsi, I used to go out and I would meet with the route salesmen and the people in the bottling plants. And one time I'm in St. Louis and I'm meeting with like 10 route salesmen. And I'm talking to them about merchandising and asking them what's working, what's not working. And everybody started raving about this person, Bob, who's right across the table from me.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh, Bob showed me more in 2 days, and I learned my first 4 years. Oh, Bob's so great with customers, et cetera. And I looked over at Bob, and he's crying. And I said, Bob, why are you crying? And he said, I've been in this company for 47 years, and I'm retiring in 2 weeks, and I didn't know people felt this way about me.
Wow.
So that hit me in the gut, and I said to myself, from that point on, whatever I did, the biggest behavior that I was going to really try to drive in whatever team I had the privilege of leading was going to be recognition. So I got the opportunity to become president of KFC. So I go to KFC and I'm thinking, I want to make recognition our number one behavior. How can I do this? And I wanted to have fun doing it. And I wanted to show everybody I wasn't going to be like the typical president, I was going to work hard, but I wasn't going to take myself too seriously. But we're going to take the business seriously, and so I was looking for a recognition award that I could give out for people who did great things, and I heard about this guy in IT who gave away this rubber chicken, and he did it at his monthly meetings. And I went to him. I said, I really am looking for a great recognition award. Could I, use your floppy chicken, as my recognition award? And he said, fine. So I took that, and then what I did is I started recognizing people every time I saw them exhibiting the behaviors that I knew were going to drive results, like let's say customer focus or quality. I would take that floppy chicken in, and let's say Annie, I'd say, boy, you're a great original recipe cook. I can't believe, how long you been in this company? 17 years? Oh, great. I mean, this chicken's so good. I go out, I get my rubber chicken, I come back and say, you know what? I'm going to give you this floppy chicken here.
Yeah.
And then I'd number it, and then I'd write on it what you did, Annie. Quality's number one.
Wow.
Thank you for everything that you do. And I would give it to someone, and then I would say, I'm going to take a picture of you. And I take the picture, and I said, I'm going to send you a framed picture of us together.
Wow.
You can toss it in the trash if you want, but I'm going to put your picture in my office because you're what makes our business tick, okay?
Wow.
And then I would give him or her $100 because you can't eat a rubber chicken.
Yeah,
okay?
that's right. That's right.
And I could do that because I was president. So I basically did that, and I started filling up my office with pictures of people I recognized. Then I went to Pizza Hut, and I gave away cheese heads. And then when I became CEO of Yum, I gave these walk the talk teeth away.
Yeah.
And what happened is in business and in leadership, people cast a shadow. People do what the leader does, and people saw the impact of what I was doing. And then my team, they all developed their own individual awards, okay?
Wow.
And then their teams did it, and recognition became the number one. It just cascaded all around the world. It worked everywhere. I mean, it was a sensational thing to see happen. But even today, when I go speak to young people and have the opportunity to talk to them about our company and how it was founded and all that, people say that recognition is by far and away the number one behavior we have at Yum Brands. And I think that's the reason why we achieve the success, because, you can't get anything done without people believing that they count. You gotta have, everybody's got to believe that what they do really does matter. But that floppy chicken was fun.
Yeah.
And then everybody personalized their own awards. Like if somebody was in construction, they might give away a shovel. If someone was in PR and handled crisis management, they might give away a fasten your seatbelt award.
Yeah.
But everybody had their own little award, and we had fun doing it. But when you can make recognition personal, it really does make a difference. And that floppy chicken, I will tell you this. I gave one to Chuck Grant, who was a engineer at KFC, and unfortunately he passed away with cancer. But when I went to his memorial service, his wife told me that the one thing he wanted in his casket was his rubber chicken.
No, wow.
I mean, but that shows you. I know that people go. It's a lot of times like, "Oh, are you kidding me?" No, but it shows how much recognition really does matter. Yes. I mean, even that Bob story I told you. I mean, it matters.
It was just words, yeah.
Yeah, but when you're a leader, you got to recognize that you have the privilege of leadership.
Yes.
And recognizing people's important. You have to recognize both the good and the bad behavior, but it's important to do both.
Yes. Gosh, David, I could just talk to you for so much longer. I thank God that you have books and your podcast, really, because you're such a gift to all of us that are trying to lead somewhere. So I know you have an app even. My friend Luke Fleener helps work on your app, and Luke showed it to me the other day at breakfast. So I'm going all in on David Novak's teaching me how to lead. So I am diving head in. Is there anything we didn't talk about that you want to make sure we cover?
No, I probably talked too much, but I certainly enjoyed
not
it.
At all.
Yeah.
Oh, I enjoyed it so much. Not all. It feels like it truly is such a gift, especially today for me to be able to sit under your leadership. It is an advantage I do not deserve to get to talk to you. I cannot wait for everybody to get to read how leaders learn. The last question we always ask, because the show is called That Sounds Fun, we've got to know, tell me what you do for fun.
Well, I love to write country songs.
Really? Oh yeah, you wrote one for your wife. I read about that.
Yeah, I've written. I have 6 now. And
wow.
I'm trying to do an album, and it's basically living the American dream is the idea, and so I have a number of songs. One's on the Star Spangled Banner.
Wow.
Then the other is on my mother, when she passed away, Mama, called Mama. And then I wrote one about my wife. I got Wendy. And then, I've got one called There's Nothing Wrong with Drinking. There's Something Wrong with Me.
Oh, good. That sounds like a country song right there.
Where
well
I got
done.
that? But that was in the... that was when I was in the advertising agency business. I listened to somebody from a rehabilitation center it was an account we had, and the person said that. I said, that's a country song. And then I wrote a KFC and country goes together like you and me, because it's all part of my career. So those are all things that I have fun. And I had somebody that I collaborated to do that stuff with, but it sounds like fun to me. But I don't know.
Are you singing them too? Are you recording them and singing them?
I only sing them in private. Okay.
Yeah.
but now I might answer. I say I want to go on that Sounds Fun podcast. That'd be fun.
Come on, you are welcome. Listen, when that album comes out, we have musicians come all the time, so you just come on back to the show. Thank you for making time for me today and for making time for this interview. I'm really, really grateful.
Yeah, I'm grateful too, Annie. Thank you very much.
You guys, isn't he brilliant? As you can hear in the show, we are really working through some things here at AFD Inc. and That Sounds Fun Network. And it has been so helpful getting to talk to David, but also to read How Leaders Learn that comes out tomorrow. Make sure you grab a copy of that for yourself, for your favorite leader in your life. Go follow him on social. Tell him thanks for being on the show. And I cannot recommend his podcast enough. It is called How Leaders Lead. Speaking of, if you enjoyed this conversation, I think you're also going to love some of the other episodes we've done with leaders. I'm thinking of my friend Christy Wright, or our Build Your Board conversation with my business partner, Kelly Haywood, and our business coach, Chris Weinberg. Those are all linked for you in the show notes below. And if you have any questions from this episode, you can drop them in the Q&A box on your Spotify app if you're a Spotify listener like me, or send them to us on the Instagram at That Sounds Fun Podcast. We'll try to answer them there. Hey, listen, make sure you are following That Sounds Fun Podcast this month, particularly this month and next month. July is a lot of your favorite month on the podcast, so you don't want to miss what's coming on That Sounds Fun Podcast on socials as well. But also June is the month that I take some time off, and all the information about our podcasts that are still going to be brand new and incredible is going to be at That Sounds Fun Podcast. So make sure you're following there. If you need anything else from me, I'm embarrassingly easy to find this week. Annie F. Downs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you may need me, that's where you can find me. And in New York City, as you are listening and seeing on socials and hearing in our AFD and NYC. I think that's it for me today, friends. So go out or stay home, do something that sounds fun to you, and I will do the same. Today, what sounds fun to me is getting my little New York apartment ready for some of my family to get here for a couple of days this weekend. I'm really excited. So y'all have a great week. We'll see you back here on Thursday. Y'all get ready for Thursday. If you have ever thought about writing a book, Thursday is your day. Writing coach and author Allie Fallon is here with some great information and some great resources. So this is the summer. You write your book, my friend. We'll see you back here on Thursday.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Check 1, 2 on the microphone. Annie F. Downs in your car to your home. Every week it's something new. A deep talk or an interview. She'll make you laugh, she'll make you cry. When it's dark out, she's a light. When you're down, get you feeling right. Oh man, that sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh.